No! No! No!
In the film industry, there have always been interesting stories about the choice of leading and supporting actors and actresses by film producers. Some roles become iconic largely because of who the actor was.
Next time, Indiana Jones, it'll take more than children to save you.
Some movies may flop for the exact same reason.
Well, I'll be damned.
So here are 10 actors who said no to roles in major Hollywood films.
No, 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 no. Hell no, no.
Matt Damon. The 2003 theatrical release of Daredevil, starring Ben Affleck, had some mixed reviews.
Wow, that's a real bummer, I have to say. I know you're...
Some people loved it for its brilliant work with computer graphics, but there was also lots of criticism, mainly because of its gratuitous bloodshed. Its director, Mark Steven Johnson, had initially asked Matt Damon to come on board as the star. Damon declined his offer, saying he didn't know Mark Steven Johnson well enough, and also that the script didn't quite interest him. This led to Johnson settling for Ben Affleck. This was not the first time that Matt Damon declined offers to star in big shot movies. He had been approached by producer James Cameron to be the lead actor in Avatar.
Hard to not be pessimistic these days.
However, he declined this offer too, stating that his schedule at the time wouldn't allow it. He had been starring in Bourne Ultimatum at the time, but commended the Avatar script as being well written. The Star Trek producers had also invited Matt Damon to play the supporting role of James T. Kirk's dad, but he declined the offer, and it was taken up by Chris Hemsworth. The producer said maybe it was a good call, for it would have been distracting for the famous actor to take up a supporting role. More movie madness in a sec, so if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Matthew McConaughey. In Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Kurt Russell was perfectly cast as Chris Pratt's father in the movie. However, before Russell got the job, producer James Gunn had asked Matthew McConaughey to play the role. He declined, saying he felt that joining the Guardians of the Galaxy sequel would make him feel like an amendment rather than being in a film from scratch.
This is a jealousy thing.
He opted for the movie version of Stephen King's series of books The Dark Tower instead, where he starred as the Man in Black. Unfortunately, The Dark Tower didn't gain as much popularity as Guardians of the Galaxy did.
Bye.
Interestingly, when Magic Mike XXL was released in 2015, it was to everyone's surprise that McConaughey did not proceed with his role as Dallas, like in the prequel. Its director, Greg Jacobs, explained the reason why McConaughey dropped the role. He didn't want to simply remake the previous film, but there are suspicions that McConaughey was simply too busy for it.
A lot of lawbreakers up in this house.
Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is famously known for his anti-racist attitude, which puts him in a positive limelight, but has also made him decline a couple of questionable films.
I turned down 7.
Denzel has also declined acting as a detective in the movie Seven, but this was for other reasons. He claimed he wasn't familiar with the producer. However, after the film gained popularity, he regretted his decision. At the time, he had opted for Devil in a Blue Dress instead, written and directed by Carl Franklin and produced by Mike Bean. In the neo-noir mystery movie, he plays a World War II veteran down on his luck who accepts an offer from a stranger to find a woman.
Telling me I was about to make a bad decision.
In 2007, when George Clooney played the lead in Michael Clayton, word went round that Denzel had been offered this role first but had declined. This was confirmed by the production company, who said Denzel declined this offer for the same reason he had given up on Seven. This, too, was a decision he later regretted.
Oh, I blew it.
Charlie Hunnam. Let's admit it, the 50 Shades of Grey novel was a huge success.
No.
Readers were extremely excited when the movie adaptation was announced in 2013. However, despite what many people had expected, Sons of Anarchy star Charlie Hunnam did not take the lead. The role was filled by Jamie Dornan instead. Hunnam had originally been signed to play Christian Grey in 2013, but as he explained at the time, he was still hung up on Sons of Anarchy, wherein he played outlaw biker Jax Teller in the FX drama that ran from 2008 to 2014.
It's not that simple, sir.
He also had made a previous commitment to be in another movie, Crimson Peak, for Guillermo del Toro. Between preparing for Sons of Anarchy, Crimson Peak, and 50 Shades of Grey, he had something of a nervous breakdown and decided to withdraw from the movie.
You are monsters!
In Pacific Rim, also directed by Guillermo del Toro, Charlie did a remarkable job. But when the time for Pacific Rim 2 came, he opted out and chose Papillon instead. Apparently, he loved the Papillon script, which was written by Aaron Guzikowski. He said it was a matter of temptations and following his heart, since Papillon had originally been played by iconic actor Steve McQueen. Additionally, he declined to play a role in the famous Game of Thrones because his schedule was tight with shooting King Arthur, Legend of the Sword at that time. This was viewed as a bad decision by many, but both of his films turned out to be quite successful. Leonardo DiCaprio. Once this name is mentioned, Titanic rings. Released in 1997, Titanic gave Leonardo massive popularity in Hollywood and beyond. At the time of shooting Titanic, he had been invited to star in Boogie Nights, but recommended his friend Mark Wahlberg in his place. He saw it impossible to star in both films simultaneously and successfully. However, upon watching the film later, he expressed that had he accepted this role, it would have been a plus in his career path.
Feel my heat.
Once Titanic was out and a big success, Leonardo earned numerous invitations to other films, but declined what turned out to be an iconic role in The Matrix in 1999. The production company confirmed it when Keanu Reeves was cast as the lead, which eventually panned out pretty well for Reeves, acting as Neo. Leonardo said he couldn't do The Matrix as he felt the graphical effects would be too many and unnecessary. Leo also turned down a role in Inglourious Basterds, which was offered to him by Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino wanted him to play the Nazi colonel Landa.
Bravo. Bravo.
He also turned down a role offered by Tom Hanks, with whom he had starred in Catch Me If You Can. Hanks offered him the role of the Camerlengo Patrick McKenna in Angels and Demons, that eventually went to Ewan McGregor. Tom Selleck. One of Lawrence Kasdan's best scripts was Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg, and produced in 1981. It cast Harrison Ford as the lead after he had become wildly popular as Han Solo in Star Wars in 1977. However, Tom Selleck of Magnum P.I., Three Men and a Baby, Jesse Stone, and Blue Bloods had been sought after initially to play the part of Indiana Jones. It was a tussle and argument between the producer and production company at the time as to whether Selleck should be cast or Ford should. Selleck made their decision easier when he was caught up in contractual obligations for the TV program Magnum P.I. that he had just filmed the pilot for and signed a contract to appear in the show. The production company wouldn't let him out of the contract, so the role went to Ford. The director at the time was Ray Austin, and he confirmed this contractual obligation Tom had consented to. Selleck is also rumored to have turned down the role of the Terminator, but again, contractual obligations to Magnum P.I. kept him from taking the role that eventually went to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'll be back.
Harrison Ford. After the tussle between whether Harrison Ford or Tom Selleck would play the lead in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford gained even more fame and popularity with that role. He was thereafter pursued to star in Jurassic Park by Steven Spielberg, but he declined this role, and it was taken up by Sam Neill instead, acting as Alan Grant. Jurassic Park was released in 1993.
The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you.
Harrison Ford did not explain why he made this decision and avoided any press questions about it. However, many speculate that he did not like the director's style in movie production. Also, Ford had been pursued about taking up a role in Alien as Captain Dallas, which was eventually played by Tom Skerritt. Later on, he refused the offer to take the starring role in Die Hard, which was directed by John McTiernan and written by Stephen E. D'Souza and Jeb Stewart.
Hey man, learn the movie.
The role of John McClane was taken up by Bruce Willis eventually, a decision Bruce has never lost sleep over, as it led to several other follow-up Die Hard movies.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas quickly rose to fame after being cast in Wall Street as Gordon Gekko, The Game as Nicholas Von Orton, and Disclosure as Tom Sanders. He has won numerous accolades, including MTV Movie Awards and People's Choice Awards. Long before he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2010, he had been requested to play the role of Homer Ike Eisenhower Graham in Runaway Bride, but declined it, just like Ben Affleck. The role of Ike was given to Richard Gere, who was nominated Best Actor in the Comedy Romance category of the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards. awards.
Well, you would never know it.
Michael most probably regretted his decision privately, more so because the Blockbuster Entertainment Award was the in thing back then. However, when Michael declined to play the role of Zach in Making Love in 1982, this might have been a blessing in disguise, because the film had some mixed reactions due to its content. Michael Ontkeen was the actor cast as the lead, and the film was nominated for a Golden Globe Award.
I really did want it to work, though, I think.
Burt Reynolds. In the film Terms of Endearment, James Brooke wrote the supporting role of Garrett Breedlove with Burt Reynolds in mind, but Reynolds declined the offer, so it was taken by Jack Nicholson and released in 1983.
I'm not enjoying this!
He later regretted his decision explicitly after Jack won an Oscar award for it, yet Burt had never garnered his own Oscar award at the time. Later on, Burt was invited to succeed John Lazenby as the first American James Bond, after Lazenby got a more lucrative job elsewhere, and the producers weren't that impressed with Lazenby's performance. Burt declined it, believing that an American couldn't convincingly play the British spy, but regretted this decision later as well. He said that he was being down on himself and that he didn't think he could pull off the role. The Bond role eventually was taken up again by Sean Connery.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Based on his performance in Deliverance and his popularity from The Longest Yard, he was called upon to play Han Solo in Star Wars, created by George Lucas. But he declined this as well. When asked about this, he said this was a bad decisions period in his life, but at the time he simply didn't want to make that type of movie. Later, Burt Reynolds was riding high on his Academy Award nomination for his role in Boogie Nights. Jim Carrey. This guy has had equal amounts of good and bad publicity over the years. He was slated to appear in Elf as the star from the beginning, but dropped out when production of the movie stalled and didn't get off the ground for close to another 10 years, and Will Ferrell was eventually cast. Once released, Elf did well at the box office, but Jim did not regret his decision to quit as lead.
You sit on a throne of lies.
The same thing happened in the Get Smart film, when Jim Carrey left his role as Maxwell Smart after production of the film halted. In the meantime, Carrey was offered the role of the Grinch in the movie released in 2000, based on the popular Dr. Seuss book, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He took it up but nearly quit a month shy from shooting the film, for he didn't like all the makeup he had to put on. The producer eventually convinced him into staying. Later on, Jim had signed on for the lead actor in The Beaver after Steve Carell and his director, Jay Roach, both opted out. After some shooting took place, Jim opted out as well, and Mel Gibson took up this role to completion and won for Best Actor in Movies for Grown-Ups Award presented by the AARP.
What the? Ah, there he is. Hello.
We want to cast you as a star, so go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. And while you're here, check out some of our other great videos.